Hello, class. Welcome to KAN 4050 Adaptive Physical Education, our second lecture. We're starting to get ready for MDC participants, start prepping all the information that we need to know. We have a few assignments that will be due within the next couple weeks, and actually right after the first week of our MDC participants being there. So we're going to cover some of that information today and also look at present levels of performance, which we will be performing the first week of the motor development clinic. So just to review some information, why do we have a motor development clinic, and kind of what are the mission and goals of the clinic here on campus. So the Motor Development Clinic is a movement program for children with disabilities who are experiencing some sort of delay in motor skills. And with motor skills, that could be locomotor skills, manipulation skills, balance, stability, fitness skills, and also lifelong recreation abilities as well. So the purpose of the Motor Development Clinic is to, one, develop and improve those motor skills, which you're going to be responsible for attempting to do with your teaching. Increase their overall movement behavior. So behavior is always going to be a factor of management when we're teaching. We need to make sure that they're attentive and listening and performing at a high expectation. So we're going to be throughout talking about behavior and how to increase attention and participation, and also to model appropriate social skills at all times. And then the third purpose is to provide movement experiences that are accessible to the participant within a really positive and fun environment. So making sure that the activities are motivating to really get the participants wanting to take a risk and try this skill that they probably already know that they're not great at. And so if you think about it, most of us, if there's a skill that we're not good at, usually we don't like to do it. So it's really important that for these 4 skills that your participant has, that we make it as exciting as possible so they're motivated to work on that skill. And when we talk about movement throughout the MDC, like I stated before, we're talking about physical motor fitness, locomotor skills, non-locomotor skills, manipulation skills, balance, and stability. So what are some of the expectations we have at the Motor Development Clinic? One, if possible, we would like you to arrive prior to the start of your session to really get your head in the mindset, be able to prep your space, and be prepared prior to that participant coming into their session. Now, if you have back-to-back classes like we talked about last Thursday, then maybe it's important for you to stop in earlier in the morning that day to get all your equipment out and get prepped as much as possible. The other thing is really coming prepared and ready to teach, including both physically, emotionally, and mentally. I know life can be stressful and things can be going on, but when you have that participant in front of you, I would like you to try your best to provide 100% of your attention to that experience and to that participant. If for some reason you will be late or absent, please notify myself or Sasha as soon as possible. If you are going to be absent from your teaching, you need to first reach out to your peers, reach out to the other students in this class, and ask and see if you can get a sub to cover your class. Do not expect Sasha or myself to cover that class or for us to cancel your session. So it is your responsibility to contact students in the class and see if anybody can sub for you and provide them with your lesson plan for that session. We expect you to exhibit professional, ethical, and appropriate behavior throughout the sessions. Also, when you're in the clinic, pre and post your session while the participants and family members are around. We expect you to lead by example, be a role model of professional behavior, and there's also going to be many volunteers, some of which aren't even from kinesiology department. They're going to be assisting in the motor development clinic. So it's really important that we provide the appropriate behavior that we would want others to be providing while they are at the MDC. We're going to talk a little bit more about confidentiality, but it is really important to maintain that of your participant. Really, you should never speak about your participant using their full name outside of the MDC. Even sending emails back and forth, you should only just use the initials of your participant and not their full names. And you really just want to make sure that you're maintaining overall the confidentiality of information. If you don't need to share it, don't share it. And then just a quick caveat, at no time should you ever be alone with the student. So if for some reason you don't have any volunteers and you're going outside to teach, please make sure you let Sasha or myself know so one of us can be out there. If at any time your participant needs to use the restroom, please go ahead and grab Sasha or myself. If we have enough volunteers and they're feeling comfortable, and they're independent, then we can have you walk to the bathroom, but we always want to maintain kind of a 2-to-1 ratio with our MDC participants. So the MDC sessions are 60 minutes total. Really, that allows you to have 50 minutes of instruction with the last 10 minutes being able to talk with the parents. Also, within the last 10 minutes, you should also be implementing their positive behavior support system and also talking to the parents about their home program once we start initiating that. You teach 2 days a week for those 60 minutes, either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. We are sharing the motor development clinic with parents within the waiting room or observation room, and also with the many volunteers that are present for the sessions. So please make sure that you're aware of all of your gear and personal belongings, and make sure that you store them properly in the storage closet within the MDC throughout. All right, so moving on to our first assignment, the movement philosophy paper, which is due February 21st on Blackboard by 7 p.m. Just to cover a little bit of information about the purpose of that assignment and what that assignment looks like. So the purpose is to use Course Learning Objective 2 to use your written skills to communicate persuasively and coherently your teaching philosophy of physical education, including students with disabilities. So part 1 is just that, your teaching philosophy, and kind of covering instruction of students with disabilities. So what is your belief of inclusion? What is your belief of least restricted environment? Think about some key elements from 206 or 2460 when you took the Intro to Disabilities class. What are some things I'm going to be looking for within that philosophy of teaching? That part should be a minimum of 1 page, no more than 2 pages. Part 2 is after you've met your participant at the MDC after week 1, you're going to complete part 2. And that is to really describe their behavior and some characteristics about your participant based off of examples you observed during your first week of present levels. Then I want you to relate that information of the participant to your personal strengths and weaknesses pertaining to teaching. Again, about a 1-page double space Word document for that. And then part 3 is the last part of this assignment, and you're looking at just documenting the 4 skills that your MDC participant has, and then identify what movement category that skill is from and what component. And we're going to cover that later on today as part of the lecture. How are you going to be grading? Coherent writing skills that address the parts correctly with English grammar, syntax, spelling, and fully addresses and answers the questions. So part 3 of the movement philosophy, this is what we're really looking for. So you're going to identify the movement skill, be specific in this table for part 3. Then you're going to tell me what is the movement category of that skill. And if that category has components, which component is that motor skill? So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Hopefully by next week, you will have your assigned participant and be able to look over their binder and figure out what the 4 skills are that you're going to be responsible for teaching this semester. So moving on to kind of what are some factors that impact movement and our ability to move. Well, we touched base on this in the 206-2460 class. Any of you that took 312 motor development or 3260 our motor behavior class probably have some information about many different things that can impact our performance of movement. Specifically for this class, we talk a lot about what are some individual constraints, task constraints, and environmental constraints that can impact movement. And a lot of this is going to help you with lesson planning and providing differentiation, meaning different adaptations to your teaching to really meet your individual and their constraints that they have. So when we look at individual constraints, as far as structural and functional, we're looking at your participant. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How do they learn best? How can we get them to attend better? How can we get them to respond? What's the best way that they understand and learn the motor skills that you're providing? Now, we don't really have any control to change or modify that individual. They are who they are that day. What we do have control over is the task, the activity, the skill, and also the environment, the experiences we provide, the equipment that we use to make sure that, once again, that individual is learning the content and information. And so when we look at the lesson plans in the upcoming weeks, we are going to look at what are adaptations you can make about that actual task, the skill, to make this skill easier, break it down into a smaller component, or include an additional component to make it a little bit more challenging if they're successful with the activity. And then also, what are some environmental adaptations? What can you change within the activity, the distance, the equipment to provide that high expectation of learning and to make sure that we're challenging performance and also expecting a high level of mature pattern while we're teaching? So, as you're learning about your participant, it's really important to kind of think about and write down some constraints of the individual, and then what are some constraints or what are some things, adaptations about the task, the different skills, the 4 skills that you're going to be teaching, and also what are some things that you could adapt the environment to provide a better experience for the participants. And so I want you to take some time, pause the video, and I want you to write down some pieces of information. And we're going to touch base on this next Thursday. So I know you don't know your participant. I know you don't know exactly what 4 skills, but I want you to broadly think about different ways you can adapt your teaching based upon these different constraints. So go ahead and pause the video now and take about 5 minutes and just write down some adaptations, some modifications that you can make based upon these 3 different constraints. All right, now we're going to get into movement, categories, and components. So many different ways to be able to move our body. So the first one is the movement category of locomotion, locomotor skills. Now these skills can be even within the 2 different components, can be an even beat of locomotor skill. All right, so you have to think of that locomotor skill. And is it something that is a steady beat? If it is, that skill is actually going to be a little bit easier to learn and to perform than a skill that has an uneven beat, such as so for that, they're hitting on the beat and the off beat, which then makes the skill more complicated. So, first movement category, locomotor, the 2 components, an even beat or an uneven beat of the skill. Next movement category, non-locomotor, meaning you are not moving. Locomotor, you're moving from point A to point B. Non-locomotor is that you are staying stationary. Non-locomotor could be flexibility skills, stretching skills, body awareness, twisting, moving your body in different positions could be non-locomotor. Non-locomotor does not have any components to it. The next movement category we're getting into is manipulation. Manipulation is when you are actually interacting, manipulating, and object. And so 2 different components for manipulation can be receiving or reception of an object, or propelling or propulsion of an object. So you can think of catching would be reception, while overhand throwing would be the component of propulsion. Both are under the movement category of manipulation because we're manipulating a ball and potentially a glove as well. Next one is fitness. 2 different components of health-related fitness is health-related and skill-related. So health-related, you can think of the muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, cardiovascular endurance. Skill-related is more specific to performing that actual skill. Power, reaction time, motor control. Those are all skill-related components of fitness. And our next movement category, which yes, is present in all of the categories above, but is really something that we need to focus on for some of our participants, is balance and stability. Now, the 2 different components of balance and stability can be static, meaning that they are not moving, they're standing still or performing a balance stability task without moving from point A to point B. And then another is dynamic, and that is when we are performing balance through movement. So those are the different movement categories. So when you're thinking about part 3 of your philosophy paper, now you can start taking those 4 skills that your participant has and breaking them down into movement categories and also their components. Now we're going to move on to present level performance. This is what you are responsible for when we start the MDC. The first week, you're going to be performing present levels of their 4 skills so that you know essentially where are you going to start your teaching. Well, we wouldn't essentially know where to start our teaching if we don't know where our participants are currently performing of those skills. So for this, when we do present level performance, 1, there is no teaching. We're not providing any verbal cues, any teaching, any hints to get them to perform better. This is right here, right now, how do they perform the skill. For this, you're going to be working with your participant. You want to provide about 10 trials, 10 attempts for them to perform that skill in order for us to be able to see, are they performing the criteria 80% of the time? 8 out of the 10 times they are able to complete that criteria of the skill, great, they get it then. If they're at 50% of the time, half the time, then they're really not getting that criteria part. And so that's something that we want to work on and teach. So present level performance is really an assessment. And we're looking at where they are performing their skill. So when you get your present level performance documents, you want to read through the objective at the top of the document. What is the objective of this skill? There is a difference between a check mark and a star. For the pre-present level performance, what we're going to be doing the first week at the MDC, if they're able to perform that criteria, 80% of the time, you are going to put a check at that skill criteria. When we complete post levels, week 10 of the MDC, last week, you're going to be writing a star so that we can see the difference between the beginning of this spring session compared to the end. You then want to read through the skill criteria. What are the skill criteria? What are the task analysis? What are the parts needed to obtain the objective of that skill? The last kind of 3 to 4 criteria are what equipment are you using? And then what measurements do you need to set up to make sure that this assessment of performance is valid and standard. You always want to make sure you demonstrate this skill prior to asking the participant to perform. Now, we usually go on the belief that you should only demonstrate the skill a maximum of 2 times. After that, then it starts becoming like teaching, like a demonstration to provide information cognitively and visually to increase their performance. So you would demonstrate the skill, and then you would ask the participant to perform the skill at least 10 times. Now, if for some reason you messed up on your demonstration, or if you threw the ball for them to catch and it was a bad toss, if it's your fault, do not score. Do not use that demonstration. Always redo and give your participant the benefit of the doubt. So, next week, hopefully we'll have all of your participants assigned. You're going to get your binders of the 4 skills and be able to look over their present level of performance documents. In your binders, you're going to get 2 copies of that. The first copy is the rough draft. That's for you to write all over, take notes, write down information. You're going to bring that copy with you into the MDC on a clipboard and be able to write down everything that you're seeing. The second copy is your final copy. So you're going to take the information from that first copy and make a very nice, clean final copy that you're then going to submit to get graded on. So if you do not check off a criteria, then I want to know what was it they were performing if they didn't perform that criteria. So you're going to have a separate Word document for your participant for each skill that's going to explain what you saw for that criteria if they did not actually get that criteria checked off. And you're going to use able terms for that. You're not going to write, they did not catch the ball. They did not take a step. You would then change it to, they were able to catch 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 balls. When throwing, their feet stayed stationary, shoulder width apart. So always on a positive able term way, you're going to describe what you saw. And all materials should be turned in for your MDC participants binder by that Monday or Tuesday the following week. So you get that weekend to work on it. So here is a present level example. All right. Here is our goal, reception skill of catching. Here's the objective, catch a playground ball from 10 feet 80% of the time based upon the following. So you can see that I have checked off a few of the skills. So their head was up. They were standing stationary. I did use a 7-inch playground ball from 10 feet away. And the ball trajectory was no higher than head level, and I tossed it at a medium ball speed. So those things occurred more than 8 out of 10 times, or at least 8 out of 10 times. Now, these other items that were not checked off, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 14, I then need to pull up a Word document and write down, what did I see? So the eyes focused on the ball. Okay, that's not checked off. So where were the eyes focused? The arms were slightly bent in preparation. That's not checked off. So what were the arms doing? So the Word document is just going to look like this. You're going to write down the actual criteria, and you're going to say what you saw. Eyes initially focused on his hands. It's a very initial stage of motor development in a skill of catching, is that instead of looking forward, you look down at your hands and check your hands before looking at the ball. As far as preparation phase of having your arms slightly bent in front of the body, here the participant had straight, stiff arms with palms up. And so you're going to write in those able terms, what did you see? And so that's why it's really important that during that rough draft, that first copy of the present level performance document, you are writing all this information down. If you are not checking off a criteria, you are jotting down notes of what you saw them do instead, so that when you turn in your final present level, you use that rough draft to take all of that information to be able to easily type up your Word document of each skill. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit, talk quickly about some professional organizations and the use of social media to provide you resources to kind of get started thinking about lesson planning and activities. So we do have an international organization called SHAPE. It's the Society of Health and Physical Educators, SHAPE America. You can check it out online. Is our national organization. Used to be called AFERD, which was the American Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. So each state usually has their own SHAPE or their own AFERD. For us, we've kept the older name, and we have CAFERD, the California Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, Dance. As a student, you can have a year membership for $20, which provides you a lot of great resources and the ability to go to the state conference and the national APE conference. In the area of adaptive physical education, we actually have the California State Council on Adaptive Physical Education called SCAPE, which is at califstatecouncilape.org. to be able to learn more information about that. And if you're thinking about going into adapted PE and you're not sure if you're going to want to apply for the SEEDS grant or not, there are opportunities for $1,000 scholarships as being a SCAPE member. Annually in the fall is our National APE Conference. There's also the CAFERD Annual Conference, both great opportunities to increase professional development and gain content, networking, and information. At the national level, across the U.S., we have the National Consortium for Physical Education for Individuals with Disabilities, NCPED. And then internationally, we have the International Federation of Adapted Physical Activity, IFAPA. Now, social media, I know you all use it. It's a great outlet. Please utilize it to get ideas on teaching, on activities, on things that you can be doing within the MDC, but also just to promote your own teaching and your own network of being able to use social media for your job as well as for your social life. So all of these organizations have their own social media accounts. You can look up SHAPE America, CAFERD, SCAPE, NCPED has one, IFAPA has one. Some great information for local teachers. APE Jimmy has some really great activities that they post. APE Mrs. G is a graduate from our program that posts great information, station, very good motor skill activities that you can look at. CPP Kinesiology is our kinesiology club, which provides information. CPP Adapted PE is our own social media account. If you're not following it, please do. And then Long Beach State also has an APE, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook that provides a lot of great information with activities as well. So you're using social media. Why not follow some professional organization to be able to also gain some content, knowledge, and information? So let's look at next lecture. Next Thursday, what are we going to be covering? We're going to talk about positive behavior support. We're going to review the movement task analysis. How are we breaking down task patterns? We're going to look over the mature motor pattern assignment, which is movement task analysis. And then we're going to talk about your motor pattern video analysis assignment as well. All right. Thank you guys very much. I will see you on the following Tuesday in the MDC at 4, and then we'll have lecture next Thursday on these pieces of information.